Are you in charge, Justin?
For me, no.
No?
Last time they put me in charge, a lot of people got arrested.
Is Alex in charge? Who's in charge around here?
I have no idea. I don't think I'm allowed to be in charge anymore either.
I can text Julie and see where she is. Let's see.
How's I don't know how many of you guys have kids doing remote learning, but you guys love this little back and forth between Jay Inslee and the teachers union?
I moved to Idaho.
I know. I'm pulling some money out of savings and putting my kid in private school starting January. It's such a shit show.
I don't blame you.
What's up, guys? I'm just out of
Oh, there you are. I was just about to text you.
just took a shower. I just tried to take a shower for about the last 45 minutes and all hell broke loose over here.
I was just gonna say it's about damn time.
Yeah, I can't even take a shower. I know, right? I can't even take a shower anymore without, complete maniac stuff happening over here. My phone, my daughters keep calling me while I'm in the shower, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? Right? And, like some emergency or something like that. So I'm answer the phone in the shower. I'm like, they're like, there's a strange man at the front door. I'm like, oh my God.
Does he have a UPS jersey on?
I'm like, well, is there a truck there? Is there whatever? She's like, I'm not going to talk to a stranger. I'm like, okay, thank you. But who is this? She goes, did you call the plumber? And I'm like, well, I did, but he's not supposed to come today. And long story short, it was the bug spray guy. Why the F does the bug spray guy who's worked on this house for, I don't know, how many years need to ring the doorbell every time he comes over, right? To tell us, I'm here. I don't give a shit, dude. Just go spray it for the bugs. Quit ringing my doorbell. So that's what sorry guys. I didn't get to finish barely taking a shower here before I jump on you guys.
Julie, I have to ask if your bug spray company is Stop Bugging Me.
No, it's not.
That would be such a good, you are the marketing king.
Yeah, Justin, you should be, have you ever seen Chambers Media? Have you ever heard of Chambers Media? Well, I look up Chambers Media, like Google Chambers Media. Unfortunately, you'll get hit with a bunch of their ads because they're good at retargeting if you do that. But it's so funny. These guys are so funny, Justin. This could be how you roll. They basically just make hilarious ads for like huge brands. They got some good stuff on there. But anyway, enough of that stuff. What's up, Alex? How you doing?
Getting by. Just trying to get folks financing.
Yeah. So I don't know that everybody knows because you're kind of like the behind the curtain guy over there at certain lending, right? You're at certain lending.
Yep.
Yeah. Did you guys know that Alex is at certain lending? I don't know if all you guys knew that or not, but there you go. Now you do. So I just want to say a little shout out to. First of all, I'm going to bow down to Troy Fisher. Hi, Troy.
That's me.
Troy, if you guys just, listen, when Troy speaks, I listen. Let's just put it that way. And then I also got to give a shout out today to Marishka, who stepped in and helped me. So Jennifer Beatles with Agents Invest and Addicted to ROI is putting on this summit. It's going to be in February, this virtual summit. I don't know how many panelists she has on there, but I'm one of them. And so I recorded it this week. My topic was basically beyond traditional real estate, trying to teach agents and agent investors how to basically think about transactions that are more creative. As I'll say the word creative real estate, and Troy will cringe over there because we've learned that the favored word with the founders, the godfathers of creative real estate is more to call it structured deals, right? Structured transactions. It's kind of like you're not cool if you say creative real estate anymore. That's
Well,
what I heard.
it's actually gotten a bad name for many years. I mean, attorneys, accountants, they hear creative and they're like, oh, is that legal? And so I'm glad that, if people are starting to make a move to a different way to describe it, I think that's a good thing.
Well, and I think that the guys that Troy knows and that he's introduced are they're like the founders of these types of transactions almost. It's like behind the scenes word of mouth club for the last 30 years or something like that. And that's maybe their words that they use. But anyways, more on that later. What's up, everybody? Is there anybody here who's this their first time? Josh, have you been on with us before?
No, I've never been on with you guys.
Awesome. Well, say hello. Tell us what your discipline is in real estate. And again, I apologize. I just got out of the shower, everybody. So
No worries. So I've been a general contractor for a little over 13 years. And it's just taken a beating on my body. So my wife's been in real estate for 20, and I just recently got my license. Kind of have got away from doing other people's projects, and I'm just doing my own flips. And I'm not doing any buy and holds at the moment. It's obviously the goal, but I've got one good deal going right now, and I've got a couple more investors on the hook, and I'm just trying to find more deals. So that's where I'm at.
good stuff. Good stuff. For those of you that are interested in the whole BRRRR strategy, I'm happy to say that Nee and Joe and I recorded a badass, super awesome podcast yesterday that we're going to try and drop early here by the end of the year, because we're actually way ahead of schedule. We've probably booked out through at least January at this point on our podcast, but we'll try and drop this one early. And Nee broke down her financing strategies. We actually did the podcast as a webinar with slides for you guys instead of just our normally talky talk stuff. And so I can't wait for you guys to get that information. He gave some 100% financing hack tips in there and some delayed financing tips in there as well. Alex, that Certain Lending is now offering a 30-year loan product, and he compared that directly to conventional loan. Very good stuff. I'm excited for you guys to get that. So Joe Bauer, if you're actually not on Crystal Mountain skiing right now, Joe's got everything so dialed, guys. I never know if he's actually with us or not. That's Joe's. There he is off the mountain. I would like to drop that podcast, like even if we drop 2 in a week, like call it just an extra special Christmas present or something like that for people, if we're able to do that, Joseph.
Yep, just waiting on some titles. So as soon as I get that.
And Nee's going to give that to you. Oh no, we're just going to, on that particular one, we're just going to call it the title of the slide.
I know other
okay.
titles. We got some backup.
Oh, that'd be me. Sorry. All right. Okay. Well, who else? Jai, how do I say your name correctly?
You said it right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Welcome. And I don't know if this is our first time meeting you or what. Tell us.
This is my first time joining the meeting for sure. Yep.
Perfect. Well, what's your real estate discipline or your interest? Investor, agent, lender?
Yeah, I'm interested in kind of all aspects of real estate, but right now I'm just investing, buy and holds, mainly up north near Bellingham, Washington, actually in Bellingham, Washington, and a little bit here in Seattle.
Are you located up by Bellingham?
No, I'm here actually in Seattle, Washington.
Oh, okay. Did you see the I don't know, was it 10 units that Andy posted up in Bellingham on SIC today that's up for assignment?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. Take a
I'll
look
have to look at that.
Investors Club Facebook page. Andy Young who just had twin babies about in the last, I don't know, 9 months or so, just posted a Bellingham multifamily assignment up in Seattle Investors Club today or yesterday.
Okay, I'll have to look at that.
Yeah. And are you looking to buy more deals up north like that way?
Yeah,
All that?
I've been mainly just looking into like near Western Washington University, in that little Happy Valley Sea Home area is kind of my go-to area for the time being. But like I said, Everett, Linwood, wherever, it's just, like Joshua was saying, it's just like trying to find deals.
Well, I have a guy you should meet up north. His name's Ruby Davis. What's up, Ruby? Been talking to him this week.
Okay.
Yeah, just you can text me and I'll connect you with him if you want. It's
Okay.
my number is 206-910-2985. I'm gonna step off. My neighbor who never calls me in the middle of the day is calling me, so I'm gonna make sure there's not an emergency. Hold on one
I'll be
second.
the bug guy.
Might be. Kevin. No, she didn't call.
Who else is new?
Yeah, okay, sounds good.
Brandon?
Okay. All right, bye.
Hello.
Hi. What do you do?
I currently am in asset management full time and and I'm a licensed realtor. So I'm actually in the process of making the leap to be a full-time realtor and looking to try to invest using the BRRRR strategy if I can keep them as holds. That's the long-term goal.
So what type of assets do you manage?
Currently, it's large multifamily and commercial assets.
Mhm.
Working for an investment firm.
Which one?
With Avenue 5 and Kennedy Wilson.
Okay. So my background, Brandon, is out of Pinnacle, American Management Services. You know those guys? You know who I'm talking about? John Goodman?
Yep.
So
in real estate.
Yeah. I'm still partners with him actually. And I spent 16 years as the senior asset manager over there, which is a private real estate investment firm. And I still own properties with John. And so your path. So are you a property manager or an asset manager over there?
A little bit of both, mostly property manager, but I've been getting kind of into the asset management side of it. But really.
Are you standing in front of the park downtown?
Yeah.
The Goodman built that. Yeah. There you go. You and I have similar background history.
Yeah. So yeah, right now I'm in the networking phase, just trying to build my network and take the leap so that I can invest and obtain some rental properties of my own and use my real estate license to do my own thing.
Awesome. Well, you are definitely in the right place for that. So thanks for joining us. And so did I give you my cell phone number?
I wrote it down partially, but then you got a call. So
it's 206-910-2985. Yeah, that was my neighbor. No emergency. They were telling me they're doing their Santa Claus raising in their yard tonight.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Got it.
There you go. So who else we got here? Robert. What's up, Robert? Can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Have you joined us before last week? Were you here last week?
Yeah, I've actually been here the last couple weeks.
Okay. Sorry, that's me. You look, now that I see your face, I didn't recognize your name, but I recognize your face. Awesome stuff.
Good. Yep, I'm still here, still hanging out, still listening and watching and learning and watching your podcasts in between.
Yeah, my friend.
Getting caught up.
Cool. Well, we are blessed to have Beth Johnson with us today. If Beth, are you still there, Beth? Hi.
Hi.
Hello. Why don't you tell everybody about Flynn Family Lending, what you guys are up to? We got some buy and hold, some investors that might be looking to up their game, and they definitely need to understand what you can offer them. So let's hear it.
Sure. We are Fleam Family Lending. We're based out of Renton, and we do private money loans all over Washington State. Our niche is doing second lien positions. So we work with a lot of investors who are in the buy and hold or burst strategy. We'll leverage the equity in their existing real estate portfolio and help them purchase new properties, and even give them some rehab funds if they need it to do their value add and then refinance out of it.
Awesome stuff. I mean, like between Alex here up in the corner, who's with Certain Lending, and Beth here, you guys are covered. Normally we have a conventional lender on here, but these guys work together all the time between Certain Lending and Flynn Family Lending. Absolutely must-haves in your Rolodex for sure. So if you have equity in if you're getting started in real estate investing, or you're wanting to up your game and buy more properties, and you haven't tapped into the equity that you have either in your primary or any of your other properties, this is where Beth comes in to help you do that, so you can start buying more properties. Awesome stuff. Do people have to have cash? Was there a situation where people might not have to have any like cash in the bank, Beth, with you, or what's the story on that?
Yeah, we like to have a small cash position. I mean, these days trying to refinance, whether it be with Alex and Certain Lending and their long-term rental loan program, or just conventionally, cash reserves are a must for even a rate and term refinance. Actually, one of the ones we did recently with Washington State Employees Credit Union required Matt and I to have 12 months principal and interest in reserves. That's a big chunk of change to put in there. So yes, we do require a small amount. If there's enough equity in the property, we'll do maybe just a holdback to cover that. So they'll have those funds when they're ready to refinance. But depends on the client. We've been able to finance up to 100% of the purchase price and some of the rehab too, and leave some for cash reserves if they need it. If it's a flip, obviously they don't necessarily need to have too much cash on hand, as would be for a buy and hold.
Basically, what you guys need to know is that you don't have to know everything. If you have a good deal and you think that you have your numbers right and you've done your own due diligence, you can give Alex and Beth a call for your lending needs, and they will help you talk through the best solution for you guys. That's the power of a network in a group like this, right? You don't have to know everything. You can learn it along the way, as long as you know who to call. Okay.
I have a question. Hello?
Yeah, go for it.
Hey, so I've got a piece of land that I own. I've owned it free and clear. And it's valued at about probably $250,000. And I'm curious if you guys if they would leverage or lend against that if I wanted to fund a project like a flip.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it. It depends on where the property is located, but and the loan to value for raw land is going to be a little bit lower. We like to hover around 50% loan to value. But it's definitely possible, and we've done that with quite a few other clients too.
Perfect. Good to know. Thank you.
I was gonna say, for Certain Lending, unfortunately we can't lend on raw land unless it's unless it's basically shovel ready and you're ready to do a build on it.
I'm more looking to leverage to use that land to just as collateral to purchase, and like I don't want to get rid of the land, and I'm not going to build on it right now. I just want to use it to fund a flip. Say if I come across something and it's a really good deal and I don't want to use an investor on it, I want to kind of keep it for myself. That kind of deal, instead of pulling my cash reserves out of the bank.
Yeah, send it on over.
Perfect.
Check it out. Anybody have any questions this week or anything they feel like they need to share? Does anybody have a problem that needs to be solved, or go ahead,
Julie? We haven't had Kevin introduce himself.
Oh, Kevin. Is that Kevin? Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Julie. Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Oh my God, it's so nice to have you with us. I didn't even recognize that was you. Hey,
does Kevin have a face?
Kevin. Kevin is allowed to be mysterious, but
Oh, okay.
so Joe, when is our podcast, unless it dropped, and our podcast with Kevin about to drop?
Second in queue, so hopefully next Thursday.
Okay, guys, you guys are getting a treat here. Kevin, I don't want to say your last name incorrectly, so why don't you say your last name?
Oh, certainly. My last name is Kolinsky.
Kevin Kolinsky. You guys are going to remember his name by the end of next week, because we did a badass, probably I'll say my favorite podcast I've ever done with Kevin last week. And remember when I was telling you, and this is all because of Troy, again, thank you. Remember when I said last week that I'm talking about the godfathers of real estate? This is Kevin, who is basically connected to that group, and Troy is the one who connected us to them. And so he is an expert, a true expert at structured real estate. I know you're laughing, you guys are cracking up, but hey, we don't get to talk to people like Kevin very often. So why don't you tell us what you specialize in, Kevin, or just your way of thinking real quick.
First, I believe Marishka, and this may lend to my credibility a little bit, and also my disrepute is Pete Fortunato, John Schaub, Jack Miller, all people that I believe Marishka at least is aware of if she hasn't learned directly from. I live close to Pete. I spend a great deal of time at his house. So if that gives me any credibility, that
so what, we all need to move to Florida?
Pretty much. But long story short is, I mean, honestly, I just consider myself a humble landlord here in Tampa Bay, Florida area. And, if I have any notoriety whatsoever, it's I don't use banks, I don't use cash. I make all my acquisitions with structured deals, which is essentially being solutions oriented from a real estate investing perspective. Sit down, understand why someone is selling, and then solve the problem for them, because people don't want cash. All what they want is cash as a conduit to what they really want. So if you can figure out what they really want and solve that problem for them, you'll never step into a bank. You'll never have to go beg for money. Excuse me for those of you who are lenders, pardon me, I apologize. But it's not necessary if that's a skill set that you can develop.
And you guys, that is the pinnacle of skill sets that you want to develop as a real estate investor, is to learn how to structure deals, as Kevin is suggesting. I can't wait. There's a long podcast next week, guys, because I can't wait for you guys to hear it. And so some of the names he dropped in the meantime, if we're tantalizing you, is Pete Fortunato, John Schaub. If you guys want to look up those names, Google them, whatever. You might not find a ton of stuff. You might find a little bit of stuff. But that'll give you a head start on the types of stuff we're talking about. Really is our goal here at Seattle Investors Club, or the Nuts and Bolts of Real Estate Investing podcast, is to help educate you guys how to be successful. And you want to know how to beat all these cash investors that walk into houses and just offer cash, is you learn how to speak the language of structured real estate transactions, of which Kevin and the people that he hangs out with, and as well as Marishka. Before I even realized Kevin was on here, I'm telling you that Marishka just tremendously helped me with some content for this summit that Jennifer Beatles is doing in February that I recorded yesterday. And it's all related to beyond traditional real estate. It is time for everybody, whether you're an investor or you're a broker, to learn how to speak the language beyond traditional real estate transactions and beyond making just cash offers on stuff as well. It's a highbrow, kind of high level topic that I don't know how to dive deep on in today, but before I focus on Kevin a little bit more here, I want to ask you guys if there's anything that anybody needs help with today, because that's probably, that's the main thing while we want to do this. Aside from sharing resources and strategies, we first want to make sure that if anybody has a question, Doesn't matter, you know, sometimes the most inexperienced questions take us down a rabbit hole that helps everybody in the room, even the experienced people, right? If it was all experienced people in the room all the time, we would never talk to each other. So we appreciate the questions, any questions. So does anybody here need a resource or need help with anything today that hasn't been mentioned yet? No?
Yeah, I do actually. So I'm wondering if anybody that's a real estate agent and investor direct mails to target both at the same time, and or if it's more beneficial to go after each one individually as far as investments and real estate business leads.
Hey Josh, I'll comment on that. I'm in your boat. I'm a real estate broker, investor, but I'm also a general contractor. My wife is an interior designer, and she essentially runs our general contracting business. But I have found that most people, especially with direct mail, people don't like to read, right? Like they don't want to look at. If you provide them with a whole bunch of different options, like, hey, I can buy your house, I can list your house, they're gonna be like, oh, you know, like they're just gonna kind of throw it away. A lot of the recently, even I've been, you know, doing some research on how to market better, you know, my business model, and people don't like choices. Even when I provide them, you know, hey, here's 3 or 4 choices as you sell your house, they want to be told what their option is, like what I can do for them, what specific thing. So I would market separately for everything, because you're going to have different, you can send them what you do in 2 different mail pieces, and you'll probably have a better response than if you were to send them one with 2 different options.
Kevin, do you do any direct mail?
Are you setting these poor people up?
A little bit. I was going to say before I let Kevin, because he's going to have a whole different answer than the rest of us, what I do is stick to one message, because I'm a master. I'm good at converting. So it just depends on who it is that you are marketing to, right? So if I'm marketing, I actually don't do a lot of marketing with the broker message. So if I'm marketing to, you know, with a cash offer type of message or an investor message, I stick to that one message, and then I know I have all these other options once I'm there. But when I step into the house, I only talk about the one message that they contacted me about, right? So I answer that, and once that is completely kind of off the table or answered, is the only time I move on to the additional options that might be there, right? So you don't, like Justin says, I don't hit them with the multiple options up front. I hit them with just one, and then I know how to move them down the line of the conversation to the other options, right? That's my answer, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question initially here?
Yeah, no, it definitely does.
And does anybody else have anything to add before I let Kevin give us some fantastic messaging here?
Well, I have something to say about, I mean, you know, the initial contact, I mean, I may not be the pro on, you know, what's the initial way to reach people, you know, is it through direct mail? Is it through attraction marketing? Is it through, you know, response you know, following up on something that they've, you know, indicated because they have a house for sale or for rent? You know, that part, there, you know, those come and go, and sometimes one strategy works and sometimes another strategy works better. Just kind of changes with the market and the location and all kinds of different things. But I guess what I would say for me is I try to be less about this is what I can do for you, and giving them the message or the script, but instead asking questions and listening to what is the problem? What are they trying to accomplish? And then I just brainstorm with them and I say, well, what if we did this? What if we did this? And I wait to see their eyes light up. And when I say see their eyes light up, that could mean in person or just listening on the phone. But people are going to be most responsive to the idea that came to them, or so they think, the idea that they came up with through my guided prompting. Does that make sense?
Yes. No, it does.
Good stuff. Absolutely. Kevin, you want to layer on top?
I mean, I agree, and I agree with Marishka. And part of the challenge is I'm not going to say it's easy for me to sit back here and say I don't do direct mailing because of the path that I pursued. I'm in a different place than a lot of people, in that based on reputation, I can sit at home and I have people referred to me because they say, go talk to Kevin. He's going to look at why you're selling differently than anybody else and come up with a solution that is going to be a little bit different, but probably better for you than, the constructive receipt of cash. A great example is somebody just called me the other day and said, someone called me and they said they have 2 properties that they want to trade for 1 property. What do I do about that? And so by differentiating myself with knowledge, I'm not competing with 99.99999% of the real estate investors. And I'm a buy and hold guy. I don't do any flips, don't do any rehabs, don't wholesale. Doesn't interest me at all. But for those of you who are in that field, you probably do have to do some mailing, but you may want to develop relationships with people who understand deal structuring, such as Troy and Julie and Marishka, or whoever there's local to you, because opportunities can arise from that. I just gave a good friend of mine who's a rehabber, and he has a $10,000 a month mail budget. And I said, I have a house that, because it's kind of hot market down here, like a lot of places, that I will option to you if you do the work on it, and then you can sell it and take all the profit, because I've already got my profit built into it. I've owned this property for a while as a rental. And the reason why I want to sell it is I'm going to use that money to 1031 into another property that I've had an option on for a while, and it's time to finally purchase it and do that. So he's essentially saving $10,000 this month and not having marketing fees because he knows me. And I'm just saying, here's the property, here's the price I need on it, and there's plenty of meat left on it for him. So I'm not the right person to ask about marketing from a mail perspective, or, putting out bandit signs or anything else, because ultimately the best credibility, or, the best way that you can, create good opportunity, even if you're a wholesaler or a retailer, a rehabber, is simply third-party credibility. Somebody else, is referred to you by a third party that they trust. Now, the difficulty with that is if you are a wholesaler or rehabber, you're typically in the business of doing one-off deals. And my business is built on relationships. I have people that I've done 5, 10, 15 different deals with over time, and I'll continue to do business with them probably for the next 30 or 40 years until I get tired of this, or, finally give up the ghost. But there's a little bit of overlap, I suspect. I think the wholesalers and rehabbers, while you're doing your mailings and your marketing, that try and develop relationships with people who are buy and hold guys, who understand structured deals, who may be able to make you a deal on an existing rental property that they'll let you rehab for retail, because they're going to take their share of the profit and exchange that tax deferred into something that they like better.
It's a completely different lens than looking through cash offers and stuff like that. So long story short, if anybody here gets a deal that they don't understand how to buy, or it seems like it doesn't fit the box of their normal, situation they're used to offering, before you give up that lead and that opportunity, you should probably call Marishka, right? Or myself. I'll say call Marishka first.
Troy, don't forget Troy.
And Troy, yes, and Troy, especially if it's like mobile homes and stuff like that, right? And absolutely, you guys you don't have to know all this stuff right now, because you have Marishka and Troy and myself available to you. And of course, we're learning from Kevin. I know I'm learning from Kevin and Marishka and Troy all the time. So the point is just because you don't think it's a deal, if you have a lead in your hands, don't give it up. Don't, talk to somebody else that you now know that can help you do something structured, a different way of looking at it. And it is my goal as we go rolling into 2021, I'm still educating myself, on all those things too. But in the meantime, if you want to look up what it means to buy property or take control, I guess would be the better word, take control of property with an option to buy, or what an option is on a property, that would give you, in the meantime, till we drop this podcast, maybe in the next week or two here with Kevin, who's in our queue, will help you understand that, what we're talking about. Does anybody have any experience with options? Marishka, I don't know if you got the deal done that you're working on yet or not, but regardless if you didn't, or you did or you didn't, could you tell us a little bit about, a little background on that shoreline deal we've been talking about?
Yeah. So this deal came to me from a wholesaler who I've kind of helped with some creative steel structuring. And we've actually batted around several different ways of putting this together. But basically, it's a house that is, it's free and clear. It's his mom's house. Mom can't live there anymore. She had a fall, blah, blah, blah. She's in a care home, but she's still very lucid. And, but he's got power of attorney, so he can, make all the decisions. But anyway, this guy still has a full-time gig. He's married. He's trying to get the house fixed up and ready for sale. And quite frankly, even though he's well capable of doing the job, it's not his love. It's not his passion. And quite frankly, his wife is telling him, if you don't stop this, we're going to have a problem. so he's motivated to, get out from under rehabbing this.
Anxiety.
Pardon me?
It's causing anxiety.
It's causing him a lot of anxiety. So we've thrown a lot of different, we've talked about several different things, but the original one that I first, presented to him, which he was very receptive to, is I said, let me just do this. Let's put an option on the property, and we'll go ahead, and you don't have to worry about fixing it up. We're going to give you the price you want, and we're going to sell it for a profit. And so that was kind of it in a nutshell. We've since talked about a few other strategies, and he's a really busy guy, because like I said, he's still working and he has a fairly responsible position. So I just texted with him this morning. He goes, I am so sorry. I'm just, because I asked him, is it over? Because we kind of missed a few appointments. He goes, no, I'm still very much interested. I'm just so swamped. Can we talk early next week? So, we're going to get it wrapped up. But, it's just, again, it was spending an hour with him on the phone, hearing
what would this option do? I mean, what you're talking about is potentially getting control of this property.
Option is all about control. I mean, that's truly what it is. It's done in stocks all the time. It's done in real estate all the time. But it's just a strategy that a lot of people don't think about. And what it does is it simply gives you the right, but not the obligation to, buy, sell. I mean, there's a few different ways you can construct it, but, buy, sell, convey, rent, what have you. And so it gives you control without ownership.
So during that control, when you have that option to purchase the property, right? You can write up anything you want in there, right? You could
I've talked with numerous attorneys about this. A contract is whatever two willing people of sound mind agree to. So use your contracts to have a meeting of the minds. Solve people's problems. Write it down.
Right. So how would you use an option, Kevin? Because this is good stuff. She's getting this option potentially for zero with no payment to
potentially for zero.
For zero.
I would be cautious with that, only because an option technically has to have a consideration of some sort.
So that's why I said it's technically zero, but it's not zero.
It doesn't. What most people make a mistake of, and Marishka, because we have mutual acquaintances, would be aware of, is that, and the reason I brought this up, Marishka, was not to correct you, but for the people who are listening, who might not be familiar with that, is, an option consideration, most people think of it as having to be a financial consideration, but it can be other considerations, such as fixing up the property, for example. And in Marishka's case, I'm not privy to the condition of the home. What I would be cautious with, if that conversation occurred to me and it was not a home that needed a ton of work.
Yes, cosmetic. Yeah.
Right. If it was just cosmetic, I would probably suggest to the son, in particular, if they're in a financially okay place, I would probably not approach it from this perspective of, and this is just a different perspective. I want to be clear. I'm not trying to contradict her.
No, and that's the beautiful thing about it, is that there's no right way or hierarchy of ways to structure deals.
If two minds meet, like you said, if two people say yes, then it was the right agreement.
The right decision.
The reason I would have gone a slightly different direction in Marishka, in the scenario that Marishka has presented, is if the house really only needs cosmetic work to be rent ready. If mom is going into a home and she's the owner of the property, by selling the home, it can have a unfortunate effect on her finances and as they appear. And if she was getting any type of
government assistance,
aid or whatever, they're going to come for that money, or they're going to deny her assistance, because they're basically going to say, oh, you have hundreds of thousands of dollars from the proceeds from the sale of the house. In regards to her son, it would probably be to his benefit to receive that property at a stepped up basis. Not to be rude, if this offends anybody, I'm sorry. When someone dies, a parent or die, and you're an heir, you receive the property at a stepped up basis, which basically means the present value, and you can sell it pretty much for no tax, liability whatsoever.
Yeah.
So how I might have structured that deal, being concerned about, mom, if she was going into a facility where they were relying on any type of governmental aid, is I might structure to say, we'll option, and explain this to the person so it makes sense to them. We'll option the property from you. We'll master lease it from you. So you're going to get income each month, you or mom or whoever. But what's going to happen is when mom passes away, at that point in time, we'll execute the purchase of the property, and you're going to get all that money, with no taxes. Now, if this was a personal residence of mom, kind of jumping into some stuff that, once again, Marishka and Troy and those of you who are more into the tax stuff understand, obviously she's got, the advantage of taking a $250,000 gain tax-free. But once again, that's where it comes into really sitting down and thinking about, okay, is this government assistance she's going to get at the facility or not? And just being cautious of things, will it benefit the family if they wait until she passes away that we purchase the property and show them that they can have income each month in the present to offset costs with mom? Those are some of the things that I would probably look at. And ultimately, if it's the difference between them saying yes, no to me, and yes to Marishka's solution, that's all that really matters, is they said yes to a proposed solution. And that's what the name of the game is.
You're exactly right. And, a lot of times we don't think about the tax implications and the cost basis and all of that. And so another thing that I presented to him was, which a lot of people are not familiar with, so I'll just kind of throw it out here, is there is something called an installment sales trust, where basically you can put the property into the trust at the lower cost basis, and then take back a note that is going to be earning interest, and that way you can basically defer capital gains indefinitely. And you have to make sure that it makes sense dollar wise. I mean, it's not going to make sense if you're only going to be paying $40,000 in capital gains. But if that's a concern, where you've got a highly appreciated asset, whether it's a personal property or a rental property or a business for that matter, there's some interesting strategies that can be utilized to defer cap gains.
Right. I mean, the whole point of this discussion, guys, is to make sure that you understand that if you're just getting started in some of these deals, that you need to be pushing yourself to understand these structured real estate transactions as soon as possible. You need to move forward with your education in order to be able to have a different message than everybody else, which will allow you to grab more deals and allow you to pay more, or it'll I don't want to use the word pay more. It'll allow you to serve up maybe the solutions that are a better answer to these sellers that you're talking to. I'll say another thing interesting is that I walked in to a lead in the last couple of weeks, and the guy was like, okay, I want to sell my rental property here. And once I sell this one, I have about 3 more I want to sell. I don't really, I want to retire and move out of this and this and that. And I said, well, why are you selling just this one now? And it's because he said, I only want to pay tax on one a year. How many people run into that situation all the time where you run into a landlord that owns several properties and they tell you they're selling them off one by one, right?
Oh my gosh. This
That's
guy could really use something like an installment.
That's right. Now, talking to them in the terms that we're talking about with these structured transactions, they don't need to wait. Right? I mean, Kevin, would you agree? And Marishka and Troy?
Yeah.
I'll let Marishka and Troy chime in first there.
Yeah, I would say absolutely they don't need to wait. And I ran into somebody several months ago and he said, I have 26 duplexes, he says, that I've owned for many years. And he says, I'd love to sell them, but he says, there's nothing else I want to buy right now at today's inflated prices. So he's not really interested in a 1031, because it just doesn't make sense for him. So there's so many different things that you just have to really find out what is the issue and why they're having, sometimes people just get it so focused in their mind that, the seller wants to sell for the highest price because, they want the cash. And it's like, well, why? Why do they need the cash? I mean, because many times, like Kevin said, they don't need the cash.
How much cash do they need, right?
Well, right. I mean, do they need $700,000 cash, or do they need $5,000 a month? I mean, what is it that they need? And so things can be structured to actually meet their needs. Maybe they need $40,000 right now, but then, they're fine with just getting a monthly cash flow for a period of time. So there's lots of ways to make it work.
Let's jump on for a minute. Robert, go ahead and tell us about your deal.
All right. It's in very, very early stages. So I don't have a tremendous amount of detail, but I've got an off-market property out of state. It's 5.5 acres of beachfront property on the Great Lakes, not Florida, not ocean. I know the seller or the owner is frustrated and would probably sell for around $1 million. And I had a professional engineer take a look at it and do a rough layout. And we estimate you could put about 100 condos, 2-bedroom condos on the property on waterfront. And right now condos like that are selling around $250,000 a unit in that general area. And you're talking about beachfront, private beach access in a little development. So I'm looking at this development saying, okay, if I could come up with $20 million over the course of 10 years of development, I could probably make that $30 million. Where would I start with that? Has anyone done a development of that size? Obviously, I don't have the kind of cash to finance it myself. So I'm just looking at how would I become a small portion of putting together the deal to let someone else rip on it and stay, as a part of the deal. Any ideas, any thoughts? Where would I start with that?
Well, you have to have some control of it somehow first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so go ahead. Does anybody want to comment on? Go ahead, Kevin.
Well,
If I may, Robert, the first question that I was always taught to ask, and you use it for any piece of real estate, was, and I'm in the single family home business. I don't care about anything else, even though I occasionally acquire other types of property to trade for single family homes. So I always ask, why are you selling a nice piece of real estate such as this? Once they explain to me why they're selling, well, what are you going to do with the proceeds? So if you give this guy $1 million cash, what's he going to do with it?
That's a darn good question.
What
I know is that it is an out-of-state owner that has done a terrible job maintaining the structures on the property to the point that some of them have needed to be demolished. It has a liquor license attached to the property currently, but if it lets go for much longer, that's probably going to get taken away too. So basically, the maintenance has been so bad that it's falling apart. So I think they would sell. I heard, through the grapevine that they would sell just because the maintenance of the property is eating them alive.
What if they-
and they're not willing to invest in.
Robert?
But yeah, that's a good question.
What about staying in the deal and they get to contribute the property into a partnership with more experienced developers? And they are contributing that property into that partnership to then get a piece of the pie on the development.
I'm writing notes, by the way.
I mean, honestly, I'm just going to say it in a nutshell, is that you need to partner up with somebody more experienced than yourself
Yes.
on this particular situation. You know.
So the first thing you said is, how do you get control? So that would be, if you were looking to structure something like this, the first part would be to find some way to have some amount of control.
I think that you should find somebody in that market locally there that
you
you
mute that
can-
person?
Thank you.
Jeez. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You want to give some advice to him, Kevin?
Well, I'm interested to hear what Marishka would do, and then obviously add on to what will probably be an excellent insight by her. And then Troy is not speaking up, which, since he's the one who got me on this call, I'd certainly like to hear what Troy would do as well.
Well, there's a couple of things you could do. You know, partnering is always a good option, but you can use an option, by the way, just to buy some time so that you can then do a feasibility and see if you can put the deal together. But you might also, you know, to Kevin's point, what's he going to do with the proceeds? Are they just going to go sit in a bank and do nothing? Are they going to go into an investment? What type of returns is he getting? Could he sell that property to you with financing? He carry the contract.
Gotcha.
You know, that way he can get cash flow, but you don't have to come up with $1 million buckaroos, you know. So there's several different ways that it could be done.
Part of the problem that you're going to have, Robert, in my opinion, because I deal with these, I'm actually dealing with a big development scenario myself right now, is that you got to understand the timelines that are necessary for development of a project like that, or you're going to screw up your options and everything from the beginning. We're not giving yourself enough time. For a project like that. So that's probably honestly too much to talk about on a call like this today. You know, that's a big request there, but if anybody wants to wrap it up, I don't want to spend all our time on this today. Go ahead and layer on a couple more comments.
Any information you have about a feasibility study would be interesting too. Anyone that's done that kind of thing would be cool.
I think the first thing, like Marishka and Kevin said, you need to have control before you invest any time or effort into feasibility, because you're just going to spin your wheels if you don't have control. And if you do all the research and you hand it over to him, he's made more money. So control first, and then zoning is your biggest feasibility. Is it zoned for that? Can you go to what you are planning? And then the only way to gain experience in something like this is to bring the two parties together. You don't want to own the property. You don't want to develop the property. You want to slice in between the owner and the developer. And so you need to get that option, have some feasibility, and shop it to another developer who will take it on.
Yeah.
And then get your 1.5% equity slice out of the whole thing for just bringing everyone together. You know, you're not going to make millions of dollars off of this. You're going to, you know, you might make $500,000 depending upon what it goes.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
And
that's totally the thought. Where do you think that leverage is in the deal? Is it in control of the property at the beginning? Is it in?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And then bringing the parties together.
I'd like, though, what I'm going to add isn't necessarily about control, but it's about recognizing opportunity and currency. So most of us think of currency as cash. Some of us might think of it as cryptocurrency or you know, bullion, for instance, gold and silver. But literally everything is a currency. Troy just took a sip of tea or vodka or something. I don't know what it was, but it's, you know, listening to me ramble on, it's probably vodka. But if that was water, and I had just walked out of the desert after being trapped with no water for a week, I would probably give every property I own to Troy or Marishka, whoever made me the best deal. Marishka said, well, I'll take half your properties. I go with for that water. The water becomes an extremely valuable currency to me. So while you were discussing all the possibilities for this development, you said there was a liquor license.
Yeah.
So if you don't, that's a currency. So if you don't have much capital, what you could potentially, and the guy said, well, I'll give you an option, but I want $10,000 or $20,000 to give you an option, or 50, whatever the number is. You can then perhaps go to a liquor store chain or someone who has multiple liquor licenses in that area and say, look, I'm considering this feasibility development here. You know, I want to control this development. I will give you the liquor rights in exchange for the $20,000 or $50,000, whatever it is that you need to get the property under control. The liquor, use what you have to get what you want, to get what you need, is what Pete Fortunato's always taught me. So use that dude's liquor license to get the money that you need to get the option from the guy. And that is, you just have to start recognizing where currencies are. And someone who has enough liquor stores or liquor licenses, which we all know does pretty, is a business that does pretty well, even in bad times, might be willing to take the risk to give you that money on the chance this development, even if it's many years from now, pans out. And I don't know much about liquor licenses. So, you know, someone like Troy, who's a reprobate, may know more and be able to add in, is that, you know, maybe, I don't know if those are transferable. So maybe if he can just buy the liquor license, even if it's not associated with this development anymore, and transfer it to another store he opens at some point in time, okay, that's still good for him. So always be aware of what can be used in a currency that's not cash.
Totally awesome, right?
That's super helpful.
And I'll say this, I've got a lot of friends that are in the restaurant and bar business, and like in Idaho, liquor licenses are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I don't know what state it is, but I will say that that is definitely something you should look into, because in certain states, they only give out so many for the whole state. Yeah. So just think about that for sure.
Okay, cool. That gives me some great questions to ask and start investigating. Thank you.
Good luck with that. That's pretty cool.
As you can see, the theme here today is expand your awareness on understanding the playing field, as I call it. Sorry, I'm getting bombarded here. Understand the playing field that you're on, right? There's more than just the goalposts down there at the end when you're looking at the field of a certain lead, I guess I'll say, for lack of a better way of explaining it. So anybody else today have anything going? We're about at our hour here. So excited to have, what kind of better day for me? For me, I got the trifecta. I got Marishka, Kevin, and Troy on here all at the same time today, and Beth, and Justin, because he's so funny and handsome to look at. The rest of you guys, hey, just getting to know you. Love you guys too. But this is, you guys don't understand how big of a deal it is to have these three people educating us here today. It's so awesome. But with that said, I want to check in with Enrique. What's going on, Enrique?
Hey, I thought I'd jump in today and tell you that last night, Seattle in its infinite wisdom just passed a new executive order stating, not unexpected, but extension of the eviction moratorium, specifically strictly for the city of Seattle. So city of Seattle evictions postponed until March 31st, I think it is. Let me take a look again, to March 31st. There are no requirements for the tenant to state that they've been affected by COVID. So the individual, there's no income limit. The individual can be making $800,000 a year, be still employed, and may choose not to pay rent in the city of Seattle till March 31st. So that's the big news, but the state is still set to expire on December 31st.
May I ask a quick question of that, even though it's way outside of my locale by 3,000 miles? Is the evictions only for non-payment, or if you have a non-renewal, would you be able to get them out?
It is for non-payment of rent. However, for non-renewal, it also affects non-renewal. You may not give a notice to vacate for non-renewal at this time.
Unless
you do not have to, you did not have to renew the lease. So the lease is, well, essentially they are just falling off the lease. And even if your lease is a term lease where it specifies that it's a non-renewable lease ending on a specific date, and then it's, you may still not evict for that. The only eviction now is going to be for if there is life-threatening, if you're creating a life-threatening nuisances, then you may evict for that criminal activity. But you may also serve a 60-day written notice to vacate if you intend on selling or personally residing at the property.
And is that Seattle? Is that state? Is that the deal for the whole state, or is that?
Yeah, statewide. Statewide
60-day
60-day notice to vacate for a sale.
Okay.
Or to personally reside.
Okay.
Is
statewide. And the 60-day notice to sale, you have to sign an affidavit as well, correct?
You do have to sign an affidavit. Now, the funny thing is, you sign the affidavit. I would recommend highly listing the property. Now, there's nothing to say you can list it for an extremely high amount, and then it doesn't sell, and then you put somebody else in the meantime while it's for sale. I guess you could do that.
Understood.
It might still sell though.
Yes, you never know, especially if somebody brings a creative deal structure, right, guys? Hey, there's my little turnaround joke.
Yeah, to expand on that, my parents have a rental property in Federal Way that was on Section 8, and the tenant defaulted and moved out, but she let her boyfriend or someone else in there, which allows him to stay there, and it's not a squatter because he was given permission by the previous tenant. They haven't received rent for over a year. All the water utilities were shut off, but then once this whole thing came on, you can't turn the water off, and so they actually made my dad pay for all of the water and electricity that had not been paid for, and now provide these people who are essentially squatting water and power, and they're not responsible for it. They've gotten calls from several neighbors saying that there's drug activity and all that kind of stuff going on, but now he's talking to me about buying it, and given that he's given them the 60 days to vacate, and we're going to go there together with Federal Way police officer on standby and to look to see if there might be some damage and things like that, criminal activity, looking at all of our options. We don't even know who this guy is, how many people are living there, or anything like that. So, but with that said, Marishka, Troy, Kevin, we are looking at a lot of different creative ways for me to take control of the house from my parents, that they don't necessarily have to just sell it just to get out of a bad situation. And they've got a couple other properties that are willing to do.
You might want to consider setting up set up an LLC. You sell it to that LLC. After the transaction happens, then you essentially give them the LLC. So the LLC still remains as the ownership, but then
added as a member. Yeah.
You sell the LLC to them.
Yeah, I think the problem with that is there's financing involved right now.
Okay.
And so they don't. I'm not going to buy it with a hard money or private lender, and then have them have to pay. I mean, they've got a ton of equity in it.
I'd like to suggest not selling it at all because you don't want to create a taxable event for your parents. Master lease it from them.
Well, the difficulty is trying to get somebody out now.
Yeah,
so
we got to get the people out of there because there's only money coming. We're essentially paying for their expenses to live there with the water and electricity because they
you just have to.
So are they looking at a sizable? I mean, are they looking at a sizable gain if they were to sell, or?
They've owned it since the late 90s, and it's probably worth 300, and they maybe owe 80, 90.
well, for a property of that size, it wouldn't make sense. However, if they have several properties, there might be other ways to structure it.
Yeah, and I'm encouraging them not to sell because I know how much it costs to keep my grandma in her house, and I just want to make sure that these rental properties are there for when.
Right. But again, you know, if there were several properties, for example, enough that where they were looking at a taxable gain in excess of say $100,000, because an installment sales trust, for example, is not free. You know, there's a cost to it, but it could make sense. So if they then sell it to the trust and then the trust sells it to you and they have a promissory note or something, you know, I mean, so there's ways to structure it to have it make sense. But it just, you know, the devil's in the details. And
we're looking at doing a subject to, and, you know, just all that, we're lifting every rock and all that kind of stuff. I'm not, you know, but
well, since it's federal way, hopefully the state does not extend the statewide eviction moratorium, and you may be able to start January 2nd by serving a 14-day quit notice.
What's expected on the is that going to expire or what? So we have a couple things. We have a federal eviction.
Yeah, federal moratorium, it expires end of the year. State moratorium expires end of the year. The federal moratorium does have requirements in place where the individual does have to make less than $99,000 personally, 198 as married couple, or 198 household income. Then you have to be affected by COVID. So that's the federal one. It expires end of the year. And then the state one is no restrictions whatsoever. You just choose not to pay. And that expires. So hopefully they're both going to expire.
What's the word on the street about the federal and state expirations?
My hope is, yeah, I have not heard anything about them being renewed or extended at this time, but my hope is that we're far enough into the month now that they wouldn't be. I still would not be shocked if they do get extended.
Seriously.
So Enrique here sued the state of Washington. How's that going?
Yeah, it's still in progress. So yes, I have sued the state of Washington in federal court. The state did respond that they don't think that they should be, you know, held liable. And so now the next step is, well, now we get a response and it still has to go to court, and it'll drag out forever. But it's the lawsuit is to essentially stop the moratorium. It's not a monetary lawsuit.
How many units do you have these days, or under management or owned, Enrique?
Owned right now is 123, under management just under 800. I've got 2 that are not paying me personally right now, although one of them looks like they're going to get assistance, and then I'll be down to just 1, but that qualifies me to be a plaintiff in the lawsuit. And I'm one of 3 plaintiffs in this federal lawsuit against the state.
Somebody had to do it, right? Good for you.
Yeah, well, yeah. So hopefully that puts enough pressure not to pass or not to extend the moratorium. We'll see.
Julie, may I make a quick comment?
Sure.
In regards to the CDC or federal moratorium, and that's simply that, once again, one of the benefits of seller financing, you know, if you have a federally backed loan, you couldn't evict people. Those of us who have, you know, purchased properties on installment sale, you know, that does not apply to. On top of that, since an installment sale is not a loan, it's a purchase of equity. That also further removes you from any type of government control in that regards, which is where in Florida, for instance, sure, we can evict for non-payment, but we have slightly less challenges than you do. I do all of our rentals end up being month to month, and that's another discussion about property management for another time. But if we were having a challenge with, and we let all of our residents know for several months in a row, if you're gonna have a problem, just let us know. We'll work with you. We like all you guys. You've been with us for a long time. But everybody's, you know, engineers, they're working from home, they're B-class tenants. But when you've got a month-to-month rent, month-to-month rental situation here in Florida, non-renewal, we were allowed to evict them if it was a situation like that, where if they had overstayed their their lease or their rental contract, depending on what you were using. So it's always interesting to hear how other areas of the country are maybe even denying people who are overstaying their leases.
And that might be an interesting play for you, Justin, is if you buy out the mortgage on that house for your parents, you bring in your personal bankers that to fund that. And then you record a purchase and sale, and then you can evict.
So bring in private financing to take out the institutional financing,
Yep.
and then give them an installment, a loan for the balance to buy out their equity over time. Does that make sense?
He might not even need to buy out his parents. I mean, depending on how. Well, not even or the loan. I mean, take it subject to and have his parents do an installment sale for their equity.
Sure, could do that as well if the financing.
It's still a purchase.
Yeah.
I mean, eventually, it needs work. I mean, because it's been a Section 8 rental for 20 plus years. I could put some equity into it and do a cash out refinance to get that equity out.
Or you could I think what we're saying is that there's a trade-off between low bank financing and the regulations that come with institutional financing. So you may want to consider which one is more favorable for you in the long run.
Awesome.
I haven't ever done it yet, but certainly, common is the life estate deed. So a life estate deed where they've got it for the rest of their lives, and they don't have to worry about you changing your mind later on and trying to kick them out. And at that time, then it passes on to you, or you.
But they're not living in the home, though. I mean.
Oh, that's right. They're not living.
Yeah, these are investment properties that they have. Yeah, but life estate is, that's always a good option for somebody who wants to stay in it.
Marishka, that's been my big thing, right? I've been trying to figure out how to. I was talking to Kevin about that. How do I offer a better situation than people who would normally go after a reverse mortgage?
Mm-hmm.
Right? How can I be the replacement option for a reverse mortgage, or have some sort of conversation like that? And I was talking about, they want to stay. Obviously, that's why they would get the reverse mortgage, right? And so how could maybe using a life estate or something like that? And then how would I get my money out or something? That's where Kevin said, kind of like how, just off the cuff, I barely even met Kevin. And he's like, well, you could sell the future upside to somebody, right? To start recovering some of your cash back. Just smart stuff.
Almost like a reverse partial sale of a note.
Right. Exactly. So these are the kind of things that I get most excited to learn about and to talk about. And because this is my show, you guys are going to be forced to learn and listen this as well, which is you're going to thank me for later, because it will change the game for you, not only on how you either transact as a broker or an investor or whatever. Stop thinking about cash all the time, right? So every time you get a lead going forward right now, think how you normally think. And then part 2, start thinking about the opportunity and understanding the playing field without using your cash or without them getting all their cash, and see what kind of opportunities, what other extra things do you have to work with, such as liquor licenses, or who knows, right? Or do they own other properties, right? Just start asking. Maybe what we could do is develop like a kind of a checklist of additional questions for you guys that you guys could ask that would prompt at least gathering information you wouldn't normally think about gathering, that you could bring back to your community here, and we can help you get through some stuff and find more opportunities for yourselves in a different way of thinking. So,
Julie, may I make a quick comment about how that could apply to someone such as Josh?
Yeah.
So Josh has a vacant piece of land, that is worth, I'm going to take his word for it, $250,000. And if he's you know, and if he's doing a rehab that costs 100, it's once again, I don't know if Marishka is into this as well. I'm going to assume so, but you know, we use a lot of self-directed IRAs for all of our deals. Once again, not touching a bank when we need, you know, when we need one. If we do need money, we go to a friend with a self-directed IRA and borrow from them. But someone with a good self-directed IRA, if Josh, you know, has a reputation for doing projects of the scope that he's looking for, and you know, let's say he only wants to borrow 100 or 120 against a $250,000 property, I would go to somebody with a self-directed IRA, and you know, if he gives the scope of the property, he's like, I can have this sold in 6 months. Let them buy the prop, you know, let them give him 100 grand for the property or something, and you know, that's a way to use an option, and then or an option to buy the property for 100 grand, and then he's got the right to, you know, basically, oh gosh, I just blanked on the word, you know, settle, yeah, buy that option back for, you know, a slightly elevated rate. So you can choose between, do I want to jump through the hoops of going through a lender who's typically not lending their own money, and there's going to be fees and things of this nature, and the time that's consumed by that. Once again, I apologize to lenders on the call. Or do I go to a real person with their own money who can make their own decision and look at that property and say, yes, Josh, I'll loan you 100 grand for up to 6 months. You get your project done. You can buy this option. You can buy me on this option for, you know, 5% or 10% or whatever ends up being fair. You got to do the math. If, you know, jumping through the hoops and the fees of a lender, and whatever the rates they're going to charge is cheaper or less frustrating than, you know, paying a little bit more, or maybe even a little bit less, because it's all negotiable with someone who's got a self-directed IRA, for instance. I mean, that's, you know, we do deals like that all the time where people come to us and, you know, want an equity, you know, we'll give up an equity share in a project, or just say, because it's simple, Kevin, you know, loan us 30 grand for, you know, 3 months or 6 months, and we'll just give you 3 back on top of it when our project's done. And that just goes into, you know, our Roth IRAs. So when, you know, we retire or hit 57 and a half, you know, you take it out tax-free. And I personally always want to deal with real people as opposed to, you know, other types of money. So that's a potential solution to his challenge, using an option.
That's awesome. I like it.
And speaking of using your self-directed IRA funds, Marishka, you know, my concierge agreement, if you're a broker, I want to say Jeff Watson actually helped me with my own personal concierge agreement, where I can offer, I can't do this on my own. I put money, I just listed something today. I have 3 grand into it already. I know I'm going to get my money back from these guys. You know what I mean? As a broker, you kind of use your money to get things done easy and things like that sometimes. But let's say if a Daniel or somebody here had a listing, oh, my battery's running low, guys. If Daniel had a listing, I'm just saying, with self-directed IRA money, how to use your money to like grow in little pops. I could use my own personal money, maybe out of my self-directed IRA. If Daniel has a listing and your seller has a lot of equity, but they're cash poor and they need a new roof put on or something like that prior to listing for sale, so it's financeable by the bank, I can take and I will offer up my concierge agreement to you, tying you, the listing agent, to this agreement, and I will loan your seller, not loan, it's set up as a profit share. Okay, it's not a loan. I have this agreement that'll allow me profit share with your seller. Well, I'll give them the 10 grand for their roof, right? And that'll allow them to sell to a bigger buyer pool and so forth and get a higher price for their house. And then when the property sells, they pay me back, maybe it's, you know, 12,000 or 13,000, whatever number we use is that profit share. So I am doing this with the brokers in my community. Like, I'll loan to your listing, to your client, you can loan to mine. This is part of my VIP education community, and we can use our self-directed IRAs to make these little micro loans to each other's listings where the sellers have a lot of equity, but they're cash poor. And we give them a refresh on their house to help them get more money out of their pocket, right? For example, I just had a listing where we spent 20 grand. Now, it wasn't my money on this one, but this seller got an extra $20,000 in their pocket. They never, ever, ever would have got. It cost them an extra $5,000 more expensive than they would hire a general contractor for. They had to burn $5,000, but who cares? Because they got an extra $20,000 in their pocket. They never, ever would have got if this solution wasn't provided to them. And so what I'm saying is I have this thing that I have an agreement set up that I can use with the brokers in my community where I can loan to you your listings and you can loan to mine, because I'm going to let you use my agreement if you're in my community. Do you get what I'm saying? And it's a way to do little micro, it's not a loan. It sounds like a loan, but it's not structured that way, to get little money building in your self-directed IRA or whatever other money you want to use, where you're not having to invest $100,000 to make money. You might do it just a little chunks at a time, right? What do you think about that, Kevin? It's something that I had Jeff Watson help me with.
There's all kinds of ways to structure, once people are honest with each other and sit down and talk about what they want to accomplish. Both
This
Troy
is my way, of letting agents get in the game to make more money that are afraid to become investors. You can be a investor in somebody else's listing, like, again, it sounds like a loan, but no, technically, legally, it's not a loan.
It's an equity share is basically what it is.
Equity share, exactly. Marishka might like this one, and she's probably thought of it before or heard of it. Is Marishka, do you know Jack Shea by chance?
I know that name. I don't think I know him.
He's another one of the old timers in Tampa, and he was famous / notorious for when real estate agents were kind of going through tough times. I mean, it was a service. I shouldn't say notorious, but when an agent had a close, but needed the money, he would go and offer to buy their commission for them at a 20% discount. If they were willing to give up he'd give them money now, but they, were going to basically lose more on the back end.
Just to keep it rolling along. Yeah.
Some people would take them up on that.
Yeah.
And then you do that with a self-directed IRA. 20% yield, within a couple months is not a bad deal whatsoever.
Not bad.
That's interesting. I haven't thought about that, right? If we have agents in our world, because we have a big world of agents that need money, we can give them the money. They have those services available at brokerage firms, right? Where they can pay you early. I don't know what the penalty is or what that costs, because I've never had to do that, but
so it's kind of like getting your IRS refund, but for less 20% for getting an advance on it or something.
I don't know how that works.
If I was an agent, one of the things I would probably do is find people who would be okay with me taking less of a commission in return for kind of creating small second position notes in return.
That's such a beautiful strategy. I love that one.
Incrementally, you get 10 or $20,000 notes on houses. Eventually, you'll get paid off of them. But even if they're at 6 or 7% interest, you build up a little collection of those, and now you've got something that you might be able to.
Pretty soon, it's some serious money and it's cash flow.
Yep, and then you can trade once again. Use that as a currency, as a down payment on another house, or trade it to somebody for something else.
And by the way, loans that you are receiving do not have to be seasoned to qualify as income.
There you go. We could go down lots of rabbit holes today, guys.
Oh man, there's so many fun things you can do with finance.
All good stuff. Well, I'm going to jump off because I actually got to get back to the grind here. We gone long today. This is a long one. Appreciate you guys. Again, let me just remind you that this is recorded and that you can grab this recording and you can listen to all the past recordings since March of last year, which are located on our YouTube channel for Seattle Investors Club. Okay. As of January 1st, no longer. We're still going to record all these, and it's absolutely free to show up and be a part of this, but we're going to continue to record it. But no longer are we going to put the recordings on our YouTube page. They're going to be in our membership site for Seattle Investors Club. So you just have to join Seattle Investors Club if you felt like it. You can either show up for free every week, or you could join Seattle Investors Club for $220 a year, and you'd have access to all the recordings, whether you can make it or not. This is the best education in town. We have some super talent here. Someday you guys are gonna, I feel like, thanks guys for all showing up today. Troy and Marishka and Kevin and Justin and everybody who's new, and Jai and Joe and Dave and everybody who's left with us and hung on this long. Josh, great questions today. So thank you. Again, see Josh, your questions sparked the conversation for this entire hour. So we appreciate you very much for doing so and coming with your questions. But that's all we got for today, guys. And we will catch you next time. Make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get notified the moment Kevin's podcast comes out here in the next couple of weeks. If you think he's smart, and Marishka and Troy today, what they've said is interesting, we have done our first, hopefully not our last, but our first podcast with Kevin that will be dropping here in the next 2 weeks. So
Thanks, Troy.
Hey, Julie,
Troy.
Welcome.
And shout out again to Marishka, who held my hand and made me look good on Jennifer Beadle's summit coming up here in February that we recorded yesterday, with giving me some extra stuff that I could add in there. So shout out to Marishka. Love you guys, and we'll catch you next week.
Hey, Julie, you should put some marketing out there for people. Say, hey, don't waste your time drying your hair. Hop on our Zoom meeting, and by the time it's in, it'll be dry.
Dry, right?
Exactly.
That's right. That's right. My hair's dry. Thanks.
I was gonna
guys.
say it looks like it's almost dry now.
Flat. I'm a little flat, but you know, hey, you know what? I don't care. It's not about what I'm looking like. It's about hanging out with you guys. So there you go. No vanity here in my life. All right. See you guys later.
All right. Take care, everyone.
See you all. Thanks so much.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.